So, the last part of the Vata series, I'm going to go over the last three qualities, and they are cold, subtle, and clear. So remember, the Vata dosha is the elements of air and ether, and it's these elements that have these particular qualities, and they show up in the person with a constitution with these elements more prominent within them, which is called the Vata constitution. So first, let's discuss cold. It's quite obvious, the sort of qualities you can imagine with cold, but they're usually the people that have really cold hands and feet, because Vata, the air in the body, is associated with circulation, obviously, and any sort of movement within the body. So if that circulation is compromised or is not so strong, if there's a Vata imbalance, they tend to have cold hands and cold feet. In general, they always like to be warm, so they don't like to be cold, but they're not the ones to think about wrapping up as warmly as they should. But if they did think about it and put it into practice, they'll notice that they feel so much more stronger, I suppose, just from wearing like proper layers and a thick coat. So cold quality is something for Vata people to look out for. So that coldness can bring a lot of like insecurity as well, and lack of cohesion and relaxed nature. So the other quality is subtle. I would say I'm going to put subtle and clear together because they're very much related to the element of ether in terms of quality. Now, it's a difficult one to describe, but when you think about the elements of air and ether, you would think of a quality like subtle and clear. Obviously clear in the sense that it's not a solid mass. So air and ether, the space it moves through, it's totally clear. Now, this means that actually the Vata constitution people inherently have a lot of clarity when in balance. So they shouldn't feel confused or indecisive when they're in balance, because they do have this clarity. It enables them to see things a lot more clearer. However, that clarity, when it's too much, it can lead to a feeling of isolation and diversion. Now, personally, I think, it's just my opinion, but I've linked this to Vata constitution types and the spiritual path. Sometimes there tends to be a big movement in the spiritual path in the Vata constitution, because they have that inherently light and subtle quality. They have more of an affinity and resonate with practices that make you feel lighter and elevated because of that air quality. But on the other hand, it does bring isolation and diversion, which sometimes they may not be ready for, because their cells, they might not be able to cope with the lonely feeling that it might create. Another really interesting thing about the quality of clear is that it creates space. Okay, so when something's clear, there's a lot of space. Now this means that in their head, they can be a bit spacey. So sometimes they just maybe take a longer time to reply to you, or their thoughts have a longer process to go through before they give you an answer. Maybe they do things a lot more slowly as well, because they're just in their head a bit. So something interesting about this is marijuana, the quality of marijuana. It actually, according to Ayurveda, it increases this space quality, this clarity. And this is why when you're on a high with marijuana, the thoughts become very slow and everything feels really chilled out, because there's a bigger space for the flow of prana between cells, and that's why it takes a long time. And sometimes if someone says something, you've forgotten by the time you have to reply, because basically it just disappears into the ether, the energy of what they've just said, and you forget completely. So this is what the marijuana quality does, and that's what makes the effect of like spaciness. So it doesn't actually chill you out as such, but it slows things down. And it's a really interesting topic with Vata constitutions on whether or not to do it. I wouldn't say yes or no to it. I just know that this is the quality that it may have, and it makes sense because of the effects, but it may have other forces as well, like creativity is a really upside of smoking marijuana. And obviously nowadays there's lots of health benefits with marijuana as well. It's an up and coming thing. So that's the clear quality. What I would say is to watch out to make sure that you don't become too clear and too spacey. You want to keep a bit of groundedness to you, but don't forget that you do have the ability to have that clarity. So subtle quality. Subtle is very interesting. I wouldn't say so much on a perspective of like symptoms that you'll notice with the quality of subtle. I've noticed that some Vata constitutions, they can walk into a room and sometimes you won't notice because they're so light-footed and they're like light and subtle and nimble, and they can quickly move. They can adapt quickly to new scenarios and situations because of this subtle quality. Like, it's not heavy and dense, and it can make them quite easy to be around as well. So these are all the qualities of Vata. If you watched the whole series, I hope you found it really interesting. It's such an interesting constitution, and there are many imbalances associated with mental health, which I feel that could be recognised by our modern medical system, which could make a big difference. If you're interested in balancing your Vata, or if you feel like you relate to these videos a lot in terms of constitution, there is a way to balance it out, and you can book in for a consultation and we can go through it, and I can advise you on how you can do that. So yeah, love to all my Vatas, and don't forget that you are creative, light and lovely, and yeah, don't forget to just ground yourself every now and again.